Hi, I'm Melissa Teitelbaum. I use the pronouns she and her. I am doing my bachelor's of social work at Ryerson University, and I'm a placement student at For a Safer Space. Today, I'm going to be talking about skills related to motivational interviewing. So first of all, motivational interviewing, defined by Miller and Rolnick, is a client-centered directed method for enhancing intrinsic motivation to change by exploring and resolving ambivalence. There is an emphasis on the importance of a person's motivation for change. And this kind of interviewing is commonly associated with substance use and addiction, but it can be used when working with a variety of issues. It can be hard to find motivation for change if you are unsure about your decision. For example, if you are trying to decide whether or not to leave a job, and you can think of as many pros as cons for staying in your current career, it will be difficult to find the motivation to change careers. So motivational interviewing is client-centered. It is an empathetic style of interaction. It shows acceptance towards service users regardless of their behaviors. And this acceptance shows a willingness to listen, understand, and respect them as human beings. Empathetic relationships between service users and therapists also have a significant positive influence on treatment outcomes. It is also directive. There is subtle direction towards change by the service provider, as well as an encouragement of change talk. One of its goals is enhancing intrinsic motivation. So the goal is of increasing internal motivation for change, building confidence in the ability to make changes, making change seem attainable. Otherwise, the individual will not be motivated to try in the first place. And with increased motivation comes an increased ability to make the desired changes to behavior. It is also about exploring and resolving ambivalence being mixed feelings about change. So increasing motivation by resolving these mixed feelings and by using reflection and empathy to help them understand where the ambivalence is coming from while subtly directing them towards resolution. So the first step is building motivation for change. And you can start doing this by initiating change talk. Change talk is defined as discussing changes they would like to make in a positive manner. It is done to help overcome ambivalence. For example, discussing the benefits of stopping drug use. So some techniques to help with change talk are using the motivation ruler. So you would describe how motivated you are to make a change on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being no motivation at all, and 10 having no doubt about the desire to change. You can also ask the service user follow-up questions such as what led you to choose 4 rather than 2? And this would lead them to speak in favor of making change, or a question like what would have to happen for you to move up a level on this scale. You can also ask about extremes. So ask hypothetical questions about best and worst case scenarios. For example, what would be the best outcome if you stopped using drugs? Or if you continue using drugs, what is the worst that could happen over the next few years? Then there's exploring values. Values are a person's beliefs about what is most important and matters most to them. For example, family, hard work, success, enjoying life. And they can identify and explore their values to gain a better understanding of which ones they feel they are living up to and which ones they do not. So for example, if someone says that some of their main values are family and success, this can be helpful if they realize that they are not living up to their values because of behavior such as drug use. The goal is to make positive changes to lifestyle and behavior in order to better live up to one's values. You can also provide the service user with a list of possible values, and they can choose the 10 most important to them and rank them from 1 to 10 in order of importance. Then the next step is a discussion of which values are being met and which aren't, and then talking about what changes would need to be made in order to live up to the values that aren't being met. Next comes continuing with change talk. So when change talk is used by a service user, it is important to make sure it continues. And we can do so by asking for more detail, reflecting the talk back to them, or affirming the change talk with positive body language or agreement. And the more time that is spent engaging in this change talk, the more likely they are to make the actual changes. Next would be rolling with resistance. So resistance refers to the service user's behaviors that are in opposition to making the desired changes. For example, for someone with substance use issues, them arguing that everyone uses drugs and it's not such a big deal. So instead of arguing back, the service provider can continue to make sure that the service user is feeling heard by using reflections. They can use amplified reflections, so they can reflect back the statement in an exaggerated form to make them reconsider their feelings on the subject. They can reframe what the person said, create a new and more positive interpretation of what has been described, or they can use a double-sided reflection. So they can reflect the statement made by the service user, but also add information that has been previously shared that is contrary to their current resistance. Another important aspect is to build confidence. So a person will typically only try to make a change if they believe that it is possible to do so. And once they have made the decision to change, they need the confidence to actually follow through. So a service provider can aid in this endeavor by asking some questions about change, which can help the service user envision making change. So for example, what will be the first step towards making this change? They can identify personal strengths, so they can discuss the service user's strengths, especially any that will help them make the change. It is also important that they come up with these strengths at least partially on their own, but a service provider can encourage them to come up with strengths by leading them in the right direction. They can ask them to elaborate when they come up with the strengths. And if they're having difficulty coming up with like any personal strengths, we can give them a list of positive traits and have them circle any that they think apply to them to help build self-esteem, and ask to elaborate by sharing stories of times that they have shown these traits. It is also important to discuss past success. So ask for examples of times that they have made positive changes that made them proud of themselves, and figure out what motivated them to do these things, what skills they used, and always ask to elaborate. The next step will be strengthening this commitment to change. Once the individual has decided to change and built enough confidence to do so, it is time to collaborate on a plan for change. First, this means establishing goals. So creating clear goals for change and always keeping things client-centered. So if your goals as a service user, as a service provider, do not align with the goals of the service user, then arguing will only result in a step backward. You must create a plan. Making a list of options of how to achieve change is very helpful, including specific actions and considering potential obstacles. And finally, we must commit to the plan. If service users aren't ready to commit, there's no way to force them. They have to be properly motivated to change. And of course, we can always make changes to the plan where necessary. We can ask them specific questions about where problems lie, and you can even have the service user consult with somebody close to them about changes that can be made to their plan. All right, so that's it for now. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great holiday.